Hello, everyone, and welcome to week 6 of 3D modeling. And this week, we're going to focus on the head. So last week, hopefully, you got most of the body done, and you're starting to do your tweaks on your body to make sure it looks really good. For a lot of you, I think the focus was on the crotch area. A lot of people tend to forget the crotch and pelvis is really, really smooth. So make sure that your vertices are really smooth and they follow a nice flow. And don't forget to look up anatomy references if you need to for your character. And just make sure it generally looks like a really smooth area, and then you can build up from there. So this week we're going to talk about the head, and this is where it can get pretty complex, and we're going to talk about a different method of modeling as well. Let me just edit my camera for a second. My camera's a little off. There we go. Just like that. So what you need to do is create the plane, just like we did. We're just going to load up references in 3D Studio Max. So we create a standard material. We have a plane here. And I'm going to send you these references, which are the face side and the face front. So I'm going to grab those right now. I have the face front here, and I believe these are both 512 by 512. We resize this to 512 by 512. And I'll double click on the little sphere so I can see it better. I'll double click on this so I can see the texture better. Assign material to selection, show shaded material in viewport. And just like we did for our other model, we can rotate it, 90 degrees, make a copy. So I'm going to push this one back a little bit. I'm going to push this one off to the side more. And then I'm going to load another standard material, and this one will load the side view of the character. Side face right here. And assign material to selection, show shaded material in viewport. And now we have the front and the side. Remember, basic etiquette demands that we go to our object scene and layer manager here, create a new layer, call it the reference layer. Reference right there. Rename this one reference front. Rename this one reference side. Select both of them and go to the object properties. So we have this. Turn off show frozen in gray. Turn off renderable. Now it can't render and it won't be frozen in gray. And now you can freeze the model and you can't touch it. And they're all in our reference layer. And now we click on our default layer here. Turn that on so that has a blue stack now. Because if we had this still on blue and we started creating objects, it would say like, hey, you can't create objects in this layer. But if we click here, it'll start creating objects back in our default layer. And we're going to switch those layers eventually as well. Don't forget that F3 and F4 on your keyboard take you in different viewport modes. F3 will take you in and out of wireframe. F4 will put edge faces on and off. And G will turn on and off the grid. So I'm just going to turn off the grids here. And start saving your file right away. We're going to be playing around with a pretty tricky method of modeling here. So if we have the head here, and then we have the side view, the front view, all that stuff. Just make sure you kind of have this scene kind of set out like this. It'll definitely be, a lot easier for you to work with. So what we're going to do now is we're actually going to plan out how to best loop our model. So for instance, if you look at this, and remember when we did the pelvis and stuff like that, we try to make everything look as smooth as an actual body, so like skin flowing down your face. If you put your finger and rub it on your face a little bit, you'll notice that your skin is flowing down the nose, right? From the forehead down the nose, right? It's also curving across here. So we kind of got to create this nice sensation of the curves across the forehead. We got to create the circles around the eyes, because don't forget, like, when people say you have a bag around your eye, it's because the skin under here is a little bit puffy, right? But your skin around your eye is actually all around like this. So we need to start forming circles. We need to start making lines. And then your cheek is nice and soft going outwards like this. And then your cheek kind of rotates into your chin a little bit. Like this mouth area is kind of a circle as well. So right now we're going to start building half a face. So we were talking about box modeling. And box modeling is a great method. If your object fits pretty much a shape, you can just shape it using a box. Or if you have something like a cylinder that you can use for the arm, all that kind of stuff, it makes it really easy if you find a shape that's close enough. But for instance, there is no shape that's close to a head. Maybe a sphere, but a sphere isn't good enough. That would probably take us forever to do. Right now, we're going to do what's called just poly modeling, or as you can call it a lot of different names. But this is really just I call it custom modeling, because what we're going to do is we're going to start off with just a plane. with one segment and one segment, meaning it's one polygon, and that's it. Like, that's how we're going to start modeling. So we're just making one rectangle, and we're going to start modeling the base of the eye. So to do that, I just bring this down here below the eye like that. And now I'm going to convert it to an editable poly. So we're in edit poly mode now. And I go to vertex, and I'm just going to shape it a bit around the eye. I'm just going to grab this part here, and I'm just going to shape it, let's say like that. So what you want to do is remember that we want to go in different views, right? We have our front view and we have our side view. So let's go to the side view and drag this a little further to the front here. Let's say about there. And I'll put this slightly back. So you see what we have here is we have a single polygon right here. So if your references don't line up as close as possible, you don't have to worry too much about that. But try and make sure they line up, reasonably well. So for instance, I can see our side view is just a little bit higher. So I'm actually going to unfreeze it right now. And I'm going to lower it just ever so slightly. Like that. It's just to get it closer. But like overall, it's really not going to make too much of a difference. Because what we're going to do now is we're going to extrude these polygons. So before, when we were extruding, we went to polygon mode and we would extrude using the extrude technique like this. But in edge mode, what you can do with edges is, let me zoom in here. Push F4. Zoom in here so you can see. So when you have edges selected, all you need to do to extrude an edge is hold Shift, and with the move tool active, so Q on your keyboard active, and holding Shift, you can just move it and create an edge. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create 1, 2, and let's say 3. And then I'll start adjusting my vertexes a bit. Maybe something like this, something like that. Something like that. So now we have to go to our side view and adjust this as well. Don't forget, everyone always normally forgets the side view, but it's really important that we kind of remember the side view and adjust it as best as possible. Now I say as best as possible because sometimes it's not going to be 100% accurate, but remember the edge of the eye kind of pops in a bit. We have this. We're just going to pop this out a little bit. Don't worry because we're going to adjust it. We're actually going to bring an eyeball in a little bit later, but you can see we're getting the shape down. And don't forget, like, if you feel underneath your eye, it curves outward slightly, right? So we're going to want to push these bottom vertexes out slightly, like this. Like that. And now we're getting kind of the bottom of the eye here. So just take a look at the top view here. Maybe do some adjustments. Like that. Remember that this is only half the eyeball, so you don't need to panic too much. So what we're going to do is we're going to keep extruding the edges here. We're going to go up and do a little bit of a rotation. We're going to go up here, one more. We're just going to like play around in our front view and kind of get, let's say, most of it done. And then we'll actually adjust right afterwards. So let's just keep building up here. I'll build up around here. I'll kind of scale this a little bit, kind of squish it down. I'll extrude here and maybe just scale it up again, like that. And maybe I'll pop it here. And then I'll weld these two last vertexes together. You can use collapse. Collapse will make it easier. If you go to edit poly, vertex mode right over here, go down to collapse right here. With those two vertexes selected, we go to collapse. And it just squishes them together. And you can see we got a nice eye here, the start of an eye. So what we need to do now is kind of just do some small adjustments here to make sure the side view fits. So the first thing I normally do is I pop back the edges. So let's say the very, very top. I make sure it's like where it needs to be. And it's all going to rely on a lot of adjustments. So just go step by step and take it slow. I'm just building up where I think these vertexes should go. I'm going to pop it a bit forward too, like that. Maybe bring this forward. And bring this one back. Then I bring this one back. And do some vertex adjustment too, right? You can see some of it was a little bit overlapping. So right now I'm just doing some small adjustments here, like that. And like I said before, you don't need to panic too much, because what we're going to do afterwards, we're actually going to put an eyeball in there, and we can adjust these polygons around it. We're just trying to pop out the eye a bit so we have a good side view and a good front view of our model. Don't forget your smoothing groups. You could just highlight all the polygons and make them a part of the same smoothing group here. So they're all a part of smoothing group 1. So you can see we got that nice side view and the nice front view there. And that's pretty much it for the eyeball. So we just wanted to make the base eyeball like that for now, just as something we can work with and we don't need to freak out about. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a mirror of that. I'm going to make it a reference. So that now we have 2 eyeballs. Oh, I forgot to freeze this. Sorry, my apologies. Freeze these. There you go. Now you have 2 eyeballs. See? Looks good. Looks good. So I'm going to change my render type here just really quick. You can change your rendering type as well. I always change it to HD because I prefer an HD view. It's a lot bigger for me to see something. See, like that. So this looks good. On to the next step. So now that we have the kind of the base eyes laid out, we want to get started on the mouth. Now the easiest thing to do is grab one of these polygons, hold shift, and move it towards the mouth. So we're not making, I apologize, we're not making the actual mouth yet. What we're going to do, and when you copy this polygon, please copy it. You'll see hold shift to copy something. So I grab this polygon, I hold shift, then I move this polygon downwards. And you can see it says clone part of mesh. You can clone it to a new object entirely. So if you want to call this mouth, but I suggest to clone it to element. Cloning it to element just means it's the same part of the same mesh, and that means we're just working on it as we go. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to work on the lip first. So we're going to work, the outer lip. We're working not on the actual lips, we're working on the outer lip. We're building around basically the skin around the entire big parts of our mesh. So I'm going to move this vertex here, move it here, and I make my adjustments to this first part here. So I'm just going to adjust these vertexes a little bit, pull it back like that. Maybe pull this slightly downward. There you go. And then I'm going to go to edge mode, and then I'm going to pull this over here. Do a little rotation, and I'll bring it back more to the front, I should say. And I'll bring this, and I'm just going to scale it so it's completely flat. And pop it together like this. And like that. Don't forget, you can always put this in the smoothing group. Smoothing group 1, and you can see how it looks so far. And it's looking not too bad. We're starting to see like a face type form, right, coming on. And so now we got to build all the outer lips. So what we're going to do is we have 1, 2, 3. This vertex maybe is coming out too far, like that. So we have the 3 polygons here. I might want to squish this in just a little bit more so we can add more detail. So I'm actually going to squish this in. And now I'm going to take these edges. And we have 1, 2, 3 polygons. Let's make another one. Let's go to 4. So an important thing to do when you're making lips, because we probably want to animate this eventually later on, is we're going to extrude once here and another one really close like this. So what we're getting is 2 vertices that are really close here, because these are going to lead to an opening, right? So the lips will open eventually. And then I'm going to go around and extrude this like 1, 2, 3, 4 times. Let's go 1, 2, and do a little bit of rotation. 3, just scale it in a bit, and then 4, close it off. And now that that's closed off, we're getting the outer lips done, and now we need to go into our side view to make sure everything looks okay. So I close this up, and now I adjust these vertices over here to the side first. I always like making sure that these kind of make sense first at the back of the lips. So I always kind of put it like that. And then I build out from there. So I make sure everything kind of looks good here. Now, don't forget, we're trying to make the curve of the bottom of the lip in here. So I'm just kind of building everything out so it kind of pushes forward a bit like this. Like that. And then in this view, I can adjust how how it sits on the lip. Everything's pretty close down here. So in this view here, they're going to be relatively close as well. So I'm going to do some adjustments like that, maybe even a little bit more of a rotation here. So something like that. And then in the top view, I make sure that everything here makes sense as well. So just some slight adjustment over the upper lip. I'm going to try and bring everything down a little bit here. If it makes more sense in one view than the other, then please just work from one view to the other. But for me, this makes the most sense, so I'm just going to curve everything outward slightly. I kind of like giving everything a curve out because really, like, that's how the skin is flowing, right? Remember, you always want to think of it like water. How the skin is flowing into the next part of the body is very, very important when it comes to 3D modeling. So you can see here, my adjustments were made like that. Go to polygon mode, make sure everything's part of group 1. I look at it, and that looks pretty darn good. So now we got the outer lip. So now what we want to do is we're going to start building up the skin and start connecting different parts of the body. Now we're going to like push parts close to each other, and it may not make sense at first, but we're going to add slice planes. So we're going to keep it simple at first. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to actually extrude these right up to the nose, like that. And then I'm actually going to take this and just push it, let's say here, and push this part here. So just like focus on one side of the face, right? We're working on this side of the face. So if you look like there's an issue here, like this isn't matching up too much, don't worry. Remember, half the face is the most important first, and the other half will just come together as we build. So I just extruded these because they're quite simple. So it doesn't matter if it like lines up too much, but try and line up as best as possible here. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to line it up to the nose, like that. And you can see there's my model so far. And you can always do the smoothing group thing if you really, really want to on a constant basis. However, it's fine if you just like keep going and it's all hard edges, because eventually we're just going to put it together anyways. So now, what you can do is you can either extrude these edges, or you can go to Polygon, create Polygon. Okay. So if you're in editable poly mode and you go to Polygon, you can actually create polygons by clicking Create and clicking on 4 different vertexes, starting with the bottom right one to create polygons. If you watch, I'm in polygon create mode, so create's in blue. That means that's active. And if I left click on this vertex here, then I left click on this vertex here, and left click on this one, left click on this one, and left click one more time to close it off. So 4 clicks, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then left click one more time. It actually creates the polygon for us. And I can do it again. Left click once, left click twice, left click 3 times, 4, 5. And there we go. Now we got our 2 polygons there. And the reason why we're just creating these 2 polygons, don't forget to right click to get out of creation mode. The reason why we're creating these polygons here, and now it may not look perfect right now, but we can adjust those vertexes right afterwards and do slice planes and start building out the actual cheek shape and stuff. We're just actually trying to build out the shape of everything right now, and then we're going to start putting stuff together. So you can go to Polygon, create here. And you see we have the 3rd polygon now. And then what we're going to do is we're going to start building out some more shapes. Now what we're going to do is we're going to start building out around the nose too. We're basically building the big bulk shapes, and we're going to fill out the rest of the polygons right afterwards. So I'm going to extrude this shape here and rotate here. This is kind of going to get the side of the nose in. So if I have this, that'll be the side of the nose. And I'm going to take these 2 vertexes here, and this will be the part that pretty much connects both sections of the body together. And don't forget, we're going to swift loop around this. So we want to keep this as simple as possible so that we can swift loop. So even if this is going to be quite complex in pulling out, we're just going to swift loop so we can add more detail in to get that nice soft shape that we want. So you can see we kind of have, it looks like a little bit of a mess, right? Like you kind of, like, I know some of you might be worried as you're building this. You might be like, oh, geez, this is looking a little too crazy. But don't panic yet. As we get this sorted, it's only going to look better as we go. So if I pop this forward, I'm going to move this vertex slightly forward. This is going to match pretty much the curve that we're looking for. So if we had this vertex here, you see that's pushing in a bit. So actually I want to reverse this. You want the white edge underneath there. Go to my front view. See, so this one here, and this should be, sorry, this should be on top. Yeah, I was right the first time. Like that, and basically like this. And it's going to be down on the nose. Just like that. So if we go to polygons and we smooth it out, we can see that we're getting a smooth model. I know it may look slightly distorted right now, but you can sort of see the face coming together. And once we add more Swift loops, you're going to see that shape come together. So start off with this. I'm going to make a second part tutorial. We're going to continue the face. We're going to go a little bit faster. Right now, just make sure you get the lip shape, the eye shape, and this cheek starting to form right. And then I'll show you what we're going to do next. Okay? Talk soon.